Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bierce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nikki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
Thank you so much for joining us today at Wayward Writers. We are excited to have the CEO of Bindery Books, Matt Kay, and the co-founder and president, Meghan Harvey, with us. Nikki and Stephanie, will you tell us about them?
You bet. Matt Kay started his career as a book marketer publishing Avon, Wiley, FS&G. After Columbia Business School MBA, he joined Amazon Books team and then held several roles in tech, including Vice President of Growth at seed stage startup InkShares, Head of Growth and Engagement at Trulia, and most recently, Head of Product Design and Research at Patreon. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Meghan Harvey with us, who is co-founder and president. And she began her career as an editor at Becker and Mayer, producing high-profile, licensed, and complex illustrated books for major publishers, before leading global digital initiatives for Adidas. As chief of strategy at Girl Friday Productions for nearly 10 years, she steered the agency from book packager for traditional imprints to award-studded independent publishing services company. Wow, both of you. Welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. Yeah, I love it because I feel like it's so courageous to just jump in and start a new thing like this. And I think that's amazing. The main reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I have said it before and I will probably say it again and people will probably get sick of me, but I know that there are a lot of things in the publishing industry that are broken. And as much as we're all trying to work with what we have, I feel like the people who are innovating in the publishing industry are the ones who are likely going to survive it. And so I want to talk just a little bit about your publishing model. So I know you offer advances and royalties that are very good compared to Big Five houses, compared to pretty much everyone else. How is your publishing model different from other traditional publishing houses, and what allows you to do this?
So we call them tastemakers, but basically book influencers, anybody that has a big audience, lead their own publishing imprints on our platform, Bindery. They are deciding what to publish, and we partner with them to produce it at the same quality level and the same reach as any traditional publisher. But what makes our model feasible is because these people have direct audiences, we can be more creative around how we engage their audience. So we have a membership experience on our platform that lets people pay $5 a month to get content behind the scenes from the publishing process, $12 a month to get their name in the back of the book. We can sell exclusive editions, beautiful hardcovers directly through Bindery, which have much higher margins, which we can pass along to the author. So we're trying to figure out how, as a publisher, we can engage audiences directly for a more sustainable publishing model that does a better job of breaking out voices that have a hard time breaking through the noise in traditional models. And so that's the idea. We've built an audience and we can use that to get new voices out there and think creatively around how to segment audiences and give more value to people in different ways.
It's cool. I want to pay $12 and get my name in a book.
I know. Do you know how many bucket lists are going to be like, check?
You should have. I mean, we just launched our first 4 books, and it was so incredible to see people go on social media and they got their book early if they were a member of somebody's Bindery and show off on social media their name in the back of the book. And that's the idea. I think a lot of these book influencers, they have these like super fans, people who love them and are with them and are in their community spaces and love to engage with them. And it's so hard to break out a book. And as we all know, books succeed through word of mouth. And to have this like ingrained word of mouth, people that are just like there and invested and have been a part of the entire journey, proselytizing that book once it's in the market. It's just such a rare advantage that we have. And it's been so beautiful to see it actually come to life in the past month.
Such a brilliant idea and so out of the box. How do you decide what influencers you're going to work with to which one's going to get an imprint?
Yeah, part of what our platform does is helps us filter for people that have really engaged audiences. And so coming into this whole idea, I spent time as head of product at Patreon, which you'd mentioned. And are
Mhm.
you all familiar with Patreon?
Yes. I'm a Patreon member
Oh,
of
Maybe
good.
somewhere.
Yeah,
maybe we should just
Yeah,
explain
that's
it
fair.
anyway for our
yeah.
listeners
Yeah.
who don't know.
Yeah, it allows
Yes.
big creators, they could be, podcasters or YouTubers or visual artists or writers, build up direct community with membership.
Mhm.
And so if you are a member of a podcaster's Patreon, you might get bonus episodes, you might get to be in special community spaces. And when I joined, I think I was pretty stunned by how successful some of these people were. But they weren't the people I would have expected. A lot of people who, from my perspective, seemed like they were creating in a niche, were some of the biggest creators on Patreon, had these like massive engaged audiences. And it wasn't always obvious from social media. And Patreon, I think, over and over and try to recruit celebrities or the biggest people on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And they didn't always do well. The
Yeah.
size of following does not equate with engagement of audience.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, what I was excited by with Bindery was trying to find really engaged communities of readers. And if we just went and found the people with the biggest followings, I don't think we would have gotten that. And so, when somebody joins Bindery, they're doing the same thing they do on Patreon, but it's designed for bookish tastemakers. So, they're not publishing
Mhm.
yet, they're attracting their audience. There's a free tier, they can join for exclusive content. And where we see that really strong engagement, that's where we decide to partner with them. And we have tastemakers that include some of the biggest out there, like Jason Headley has, I think, over 1 million followers across platforms. And we have some that are smaller and serve niches. We just announced a new publisher who's focusing on Indigenous authors. But her community is so passionate and engaged and showed up for her. And she
Mhm.
built it up over months that it was very obvious that we should be publishing with
Yeah.
her versus somebody who maybe has a lot of followers, but they don't care enough
Mhm.
to want to engage in a deeper way. So that was
Right.
the idea, is find those really engaged communities and use our platform as somewhat of a filter to do.
Yeah. But quality over quantity, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I mean. That's, I think, what excites us about this world. I think that people talk about book talk or a lot of these influencers as if it's some kind of monolith and they're all going after romantasy or whatever it might be. And like you dig one layer and you find these really engaged communities in all kinds of niches that are overlooked by publishing. And that's what's exciting to us. I think
Mhm.
that's what
Yeah.
inspired us to build this business, was not to chase a trend and do the next fourth ring. It's to find
Mhm.
what are the new trends, what are the communities that are being underserved, that have a lot of passion, that aren't being published into, and how can we pair that with the authors that are actually writing in those genres. And so that was what was exciting for us.
That's awesome. Okay, so Megan, can we
Yes.
dive a little deeper in, so do you guys ever collaborate directly with the influencers in creation of the manuscript, or is it just all like the author produces it and the influencer selects it? Can you maybe step us through how
Yes.
that works for
Yeah.
our listeners, please?
So yes, so no, we do not like commission material from the influencer, and the influencer is not like influencing what the author is writing. We are soliciting material from literary agents, and we also host like a open pitch fest so that people without agents can submit directly as well. But all of those are like pre-existing materials that authors would have out on submission, and that we're going out to agencies and saying, this is what this person is looking for, here's their wish list, and agents are getting to know the imprints in that way, and so we're just serving it up to them, but it's not a collaborative writing process in any
Okay.
way. Yeah.
So then,
Mhm.
like, do you guys have wish lists per se, or any direction for authors to be like, okay, I have these several manuscripts. Which one should I put out there? Or which one should I pitch?
Yeah, we will consult with folks based on our industry knowledge. So if somebody was struggling to decide between a few different manuscripts that they wanted to acquire, we bring different information to the table about what the trade channels want, what the rights channels want, and we can help them create that. But most importantly to us is their authentic passion for the book that they're greenlighting. Like, we want them to be prepared to talk about it for a year and create content around it on an ongoing basis, and that has to be authentic. So
Mhm.
it hasn't happened too frequently that we are like deciding that for them. We maybe give them a little more information than they had, but they're making the decision based on knowing their audience and like loving the book.
Can you tell us, you having the engaged audiences, what are some of your topics that you're working with? I'm interested. Are you doing steampunk, which I love, or
On our fall list, we have a steampunk Great Gatsby retelling, which is
okay,
kind of like
awesome.
an upmarket literary almost retelling. We have a lot of flavors of fantasy right now. Our fall list, as you saw, probably was like cozy fantasy to like climate fantasy and YA, everything in between. Still publishing a lot of fantasy, but we've opened some new imprints, and that's a reflection of which tastemakers do well on the platform. But we have a specific romance imprint now and a Indigenous voices imprint that's probably going to be focused on thrillers and horror and branching out into different genre areas as following the tastemakers.
So is it adult only or adult and children's books, or?
We have some YA, but it's primarily adult.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm ready for the steampunk.
It's going to be so good.
I can't wait.
One genre that we're seeing, I think, a little bit of an emergence around that I think we're on the edge of is cozy fantasy. I think that's been growing quite a bit in recent years.
I love cozy fantasy too.
Two of our tastemakers are some of the biggest in this space and have been acquiring for it. And I think what's been interesting is because they're not chasing trends in the same way big publishers are. Like, they're asking themselves, will my audience love this? Not, does this have comps that sold a ton? Everything we're publishing has some kind of twist or something about it that makes it feel a little fresh. And that's been fun. They're like liberated to just find the thing they love instead of needing to convince an entire corporation that it's worth investing in. It's just been great to see it come to life.
And as creators, I love that you're not having to decide, I want to write a cozy or I want to write a fantasy. Like, I want to do both and I'm going to do it well. And I'm just going to get in the right hands. I think that is liberating as a creator, to not be pigeonholed to a set of rules or something, and taking that leap of faith that the relationships are more authentic than the figures, which will eventually come, it sounds. So
that has been a really refreshing part of this for me too, because as an industry, how we like to like shelve things and have them fit into the boxes that we all
no pun intended.
Very good, Meghan.
Categorization there is, and so it's always hard to break out, like to sell in a cross genre thing or like thing that doesn't look like something else that has been successful. And so it's been really fun to partner with these influencers because they don't have some of that institutional knowledge as baggage. First of all, they're just going, this is an amazing book and I know that my audience is going to love it. And then in turn, we can turn to the trade and say, hey, by the way, we actually bring a huge engaged audience and like a ton of demand for this book. So maybe you should stock it. And they are. And so it's been really fun to make new books for these like kind of different types of books, I would say.
Yeah, one of the books that's really doing well for us right now, one of our first four, is called House of Frank. And it's a cozy fantasy. Like, it exists in that same kind of world that might be familiar, but it's a cozy fantasy about grief, which isn't the coziest emotion. And so they're taking that world and using it to tell this incredible story about grief and healing. And then it's the kind of thing where I think it would have felt really risky for a publisher, but turned out to be exactly what people needed. And every day we're just seeing tons of posts of people like weeping at the end and like talking about how much it meant to them or how it processed the grief of a loved one's passing. And it's wonderful to see these people, again, as Meg was saying, just not burdened by conventional wisdom and just finding something they love and then having confidence their audience will love it too. Well,
and breaking into new audiences, right? If I would never touch fantasy, but I'm an avid cozy reader, now like I have a whole new world that gets to open up to me because someone else took that chance. It was calculated and intentional, but what a great thing for just readership as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when you have an author submit a manuscript to you, how do you balance that creative integrity that they want with the market-driven preferences of the influencers who are heads of the imprints and their audiences?
That's a good question. I'll answer that, Matt, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
please. In the middle of that. I would say that by the time we're offering on a book and we are making a deal with an author, the influencer who has chosen it has already fallen in love with that book. So while they might have some, I think that they in general have less heavy editorial agendas than you might find at a traditional publisher. Like they're not acquiring these books saying, I will acquire this if we re-architect in this way. They're taking it a little more face value, and we consult with them quite a bit on what's possible in terms of the dev and in terms of the line edit. But they're not asking for like major editorial changes. Usually they have a point of view on what they think should be done structurally and what they think should be done on the line. And that's something that we give to the dev editor who works on the book. It's not the influencer who's editing the book. We just incorporate their feedback into the brief for the editorial team. And then ultimately and contractually, it's the author's like final approval on the editorial. So we want them to have the input from the tastemaker, who's their first and like most ardent champion, and then the professional guidance from an editor. But ultimately, it is their book and their name on the cover, and we want it to stay that way and feel that way for them.
It feels really amazing because it's like you're collaborating with your biggest fan.
Yeah.
Like as an author, I think that's what it would be like, is collaborating with your biggest fan.
fun.
And that is fun. Like I think that would be fascinating and an amazing experience.
Yeah. They've formed these really authentic and beautiful relationships. We had our launch event, and I think all of them cried as they were like, we had our tastemaker introduce the author, and the author talk about their experience, and they formed these really incredible bonds. And I think it's just so different than how traditional publishing works, where the acquisitions editor might feel really passionate about it, but then the person who's ultimately promoting it is like the marketer or publicist who has 10 other books they're promoting that month, and they just hope for the best. Yeah, it's really removed of the person who chose it be promoting with their whole heart for over a year. It's a really different approach that is creating a lot of really beautiful relationships and reaching a lot of people.
It sounds like everybody's really invested in it, and that's a really good way to succeed. And I know this is all new, but how do you see keeping that strong investment and everything going down the road?
You mean that the influencer stays invested in the book?
Yes, not just the book, but like the next book.
Really.
What's the long-term system?
I think,
or you don't know yet.
We don't know yet, right? So
Okay,
this is early on.
Let's speculate.
That is fair.
What we do know is a couple of things. First of all, the influencers are actually tied to royalties. So on a very like technical level,
okay. So there's incentive there
to continue to talk about the book.
Sweet.
But bigger than that, I think more importantly than that, actually for them, is that for a lot of them, this is like a total dream career. And so they're looking to build a list and be a publisher, just like once their list is large enough, then that's a earnings for them. That's a total income for them. And one of our influencers right now does not have a day job and is doing this and like his other content creation, and that we want that for them. We think that's good for books and authors to have people spending more of their time reaching readers directly.
Absolutely. And so basically your structure is that everybody has some investment in it too. They're invested not only because they love it, but financially too. So can you talk, not money wise, but or whatever, you can tell us about how does that financial structure work for your authors and your influencers?
We, on the membership side, if somebody's a publisher, we split membership revenue 50-50. And so this is where a lot of tastemakers are earning almost like a monthly salary, if you can imagine that, like people directly supporting their effort with what they're doing on Bindery. The 50% we make allows us to partially subsidize the production costs of the book. And that's really important because we wanted to offer royalties that were far more favorable for authors than they get through traditional publishing. So authors earn 50% of net royalties, tastemakers 25%, and Bindery 25%. Wow. And the idea is for an author that equates to about twice what they would earn through a traditional publisher, plus a 10K advance, plus this built-in promotional machine that we think is really favorable, especially for debut authors who have so much trouble breaking through the noise if they don't have their own platform behind them. And then for the tastemakers, it creates a model where they're earning money every month directly from their super fans through membership. And then over time, as they publish books, it starts to stack and hopefully becomes a real career for them. I think that was one insight we had early on is there's a lot of areas of the influencer world where people earn a lot of money, like beauty and fashion. This is where people discover everything, not just books. people who are talking about books on social media earn very little. Publishers don't pay much. There aren't these big brand deals as you'd see in other verticals.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them are trying to figure out how to make this something that could become its own kind of career. And I think this model is hopefully good for authors, good for tastemakers, and good for us. I think that we're giving up some of the royalties, but we're not doing what publishers do, which we call the spray and pray, where you keep a lot of royalties and you throw a bunch of things out there and just see what sticks. Like, we're putting a lot of effort and energy behind all of our books because the tastemakers are too. There's a built-in audience for all of them, and that will be really meaningful over time.
Spray and pray. I've never heard that before.
I like that better
it.
than the spaghetti reference, sticking to the wall.
Yeah.
That just makes me want to eat when I'm not hungry.
Right.
Okay, so you guys have talked a lot about the relationship and the authenticity, but like everyone's trying to also hopefully make a living doing their dream job. So how do you guys measure how successful a book is under this model? Is it sales? Is it engagement? Is it a different metric? What do you guys use?
When we look at an imprint, we're looking at three things, and they can differ a lot by imprint. We look at membership, we look at IP, and we look at sales. We have some people that have really large paying memberships that can equate to lots of book sales. It doesn't always. We have some books that get acquired that have done really well on the IP side. That can be like audio deals, foreign deals, subscription box deals, even film TV. We have some books that sell a lot. Ideally, you want all three to be really big, but what we're looking at with each imprint is across all three, how does this look as a business? And the better it's doing as a business, the more books you want to put behind it. So that's the idea, is we're thinking about each imprint as its own little business that we will grow as we see it performing.
Meghan, you mentioned before that the influencer does have obviously influence in the book, but you have an editorial team behind the book as well. How does that all work? What role does the editorial oversight play in shaping the books that reflect influencer trends? And how much creative control do authors have versus what's given to the influencer?
Okay, creative control ultimately is with the author, like I said. So the influencer, I think of them as like an acquiring editor, except that they're not actually the editor. Like, they're not doing the pass.
So they make 100% of the decision of what is going to be acquired.
Yes, ultimately.
The influencer does.
Yeah, they do. They fall in love with the book and they say, I want this one. And we reserve the right to say we won't publish that one if they were to choose something horrid. But that would be like that has not happened.
Ask a question about that. Do they have a pool of manuscripts they go into and they read, like an agent or editor, and are like, oh, I like this one?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Yep.
And do they go to like their fan base or their audience and say, do they have the ability to go and say, would you guys like this?
In a very limited and vague manner, yes.
That's probably good.
But we have to protect the author and their unsold pre-contract IP. So we have a very restrictive way that they can talk about it. And they get really creative about how to do that. They'll make mood boards about it and talk about it in terms of comps and mashups. And they'll do it in pretty creative ways. And then the community is very engaged with that. But it's certainly not sampling large sections of material or anything like that.
Yeah, that's cool. So that definitely takes some worry off the plate of the author.
Yeah. Right. So and I think authors and agents are getting used to that. I think it was a scary thing for everybody in the beginning, but we haven't had any issues with it so far. Everyone understands. Everyone wants to protect the author in that situation.
What trends have you guys noticed in terms of influencer-driven content? I know you said something about cozy fantasy kind of being a new thing. Like, what else have you guys seen that's more out of the box than traditional?
I'll say the people that we find who have really engaged audiences, I think a lot of them are looking for marginalized voices. I think a lot of them feel like their communities are hungry for a certain type of author and book and story that traditional publishers just don't see. They don't see those markets. They don't see how engaged they are, how passionate they are. And so that's something that I think a lot of our people have really put a lot of their energy behind, is uplifting marginalized authors who are already publishing, a lot of them indie, and then making a point that with their imprints, they're trying to find the stories that a big publisher might say, oh, the market's not big enough, I'm not going to bother.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are actually engaging with those communities every day know is big enough and know is really hungry for more stories like that.
Find these influencers.
So since we launched with a small number that I personally went out and emailed a bunch of people that I thought were interesting. And so
Can you share
I was
what
like,
a small number is with us, or is that?
yeah, we launched with, I believe, 7.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
right? And for the year before that, when I first was, Meg and I, the seed of this idea came almost 3 years ago now, which is wild. Feels like a long time. But it was 2 years ago that we refined it to the point where I was like, I think if I don't build this, I'm going to go crazy. But I was like, let's make sure that this is something people want. And so I started emailing a bunch of people who I really enjoyed following on social media and just asked if this is something they'd be interested in. And the answer was a resounding yes for the people who would respond to my emails. Most people just didn't respond, as you can imagine. It was out of the blue. We looked for the people that seemed like they had engaged audiences, that seemed like they had taken steps to do more with their platform. So it wasn't just like TikTok videos. They're doing content on all platforms. They have an affiliate shop. They have a Discord server. Like, they're doing a lot to show that there's a lot of investment in building up a real community. And then from that 7, we posted a link to our waitlist when we launched our product a year ago. And it's all been pretty much inbound from there. People join the waitlist, and if they have the signs of somebody who is professional and intentional and are serving a community that we would want to partner with to get books out, we have them join Bindery. And then where we see a lot of engagement from an audience, then we turn them into a publisher. And we're going slow by design. I think we're at 11 publishing imprints right now because we want to do a really great job on all of these books. Everyone have a great experience. We're not looking to just like the spray and pray approach. We're trying to be really thoughtful and deliberate about how we're approaching our titles.
Slow and steady.
So how do you ensure that this influencer is a reader and their audience are readers? Or is that not necessarily the main thing? Because people read, when people say they don't like to read, they just haven't found the right book, in my opinion. We read as life, right? So like, how does that come in for authors? We're like, okay, are these people even readers to begin with?
Yeah, we're only bringing people onto the platform who have a big audience who loves their taste in books. That's why we use the word tastemaker.
Okay.
These are people who are reading hundreds of books a year, promoting hundreds of books a year for some of these people, and sell books. We have somebody who did a TikTok post recently that sold 400 copies of a book, and that single post. And so when we say tastemaker, it's deliberate. We're not looking. There are influencers who, and I think it's great. Their whole thing is vibes. It's here's me and my beautiful bookshelf and me on a beach with a book, but they're not like creating content that causes people to go buy books. And that's what we mean by tastemaker. Are they actually rallying people to buy books? And if they can do so, they've proven that their audience is engaged enough on Bindery where it makes sense for us to partner with them. Then we're having them become an imprint. We're not looking for somebody that's just casually in the game.
So they're joining on Bindery before you recruit them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they join the wait list.
If we made a mistake about that, if they joined Bindery, we would be able to tell. We're not going to promote them to a publisher because they would not convert to membership.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sounds like your tastemakers are the people that the Big 5 and other publishers actually pay to sell.
Yeah, they do a little bit of that, not any much for the same amount. So all of our team are getting books every day from every major publisher. They're invited to go visit the publisher in New York. And these are powerful people in publishing. I think big publishers are aware that the center of gravity is moved to social media. It's been there for some time, and these people drive sales.
It definitely is.
But I think publishers haven't imagined a world that's different than just sending them the books and hope it.
Yeah, I just love that you're so out of the box and willing to try something, because I'm with Heather. I love writing as a writer, but the model, it needs people thinking creatively and doing inventive things like this. And I think authors are going to love this too. Yeah, so we will put all of this information, of course, in our show notes. Are there anything that you want to tell our audience about?
The one thing I would say after all we've discussed is we are so early. we are so early to a lot of things. So I think as a business, Bindery is early. Like we've just got our first 4 books out there and we're growing and we're making the product better and better. We built the whole thing with 1 engineer and recently 2. But even this space feels really early. I think that in a lot of aspects of our world, I think people are realizing, for better or worse, the power that a lot of people have on social media and the power of these platforms. And I don't think we know exactly how that's going to evolve. But the thing that I find really hopeful, I found this at Patreon and I find it on Bindery, however imperfect these platforms, one thing that they have done well is allow people to connect in ways they weren't before. And so where do those communities go? How do they connect even better? How can that be used as a force of good to get new voices and new stories out there that wouldn't have been told before if those communities were totally invisible? So I just find that we're at the very beginning of something, and we're trying to build a new business at the beginning of something that I think is incredibly exciting and is hard, because we talk to people in the industry who've been in it for a while and it breaks their brain. They're like, you're trying to do what? How does that work? What's going on? And if you're in your 20s now and you read books, you are on social media all day talking about books with your favorite tastemakers and getting recommendations. Even booksellers, I think, were some of the most passionate behind our model, because they hear people coming into their store every day and they're like, here's what's on my TV, DNF this, using the language of social media. And they can see it firsthand how powerful it is in selling books. And so we're really excited about what that future looks like and are trying to craft it in a way where it does right by authors.
But the thing about you all that I think a lot of people are turned off with social media is that they feel like maybe the social media isn't authentic, that it's all fake. And you guys are collaborating both these worlds. And that's the magic. And at least as I see it. And that's refreshing, I think, especially for those of us not in our 20s that read and write books, that it can open up a whole new world. So
yeah, I think there have been a lot of tech companies that try to build things that are like these little enclosed bubbles. If you self-publish, you're only selling through Amazon potentially. Where I think Meghan and I come from long careers in publishing and have like a deep respect for the professionals in publishing, for the ecosystem in publishing, and how important booksellers are. And there was no world where I wanted to like partner with somebody on social media and have them just sell direct and just do it like digital. Like we love physical books sold in bookstores that are brought into the world with incredible care and thought by publishing professionals. And so that was something that we wanted to be a part of and not separate from a model that re-envisions who is acquiring it and how you promote it in the new world we live in.
And librarians and all of those people they're so key getting, especially when you do have a lot of communities where maybe they're young, or maybe they're of a socioeconomic situation that they can't buy the book. So it's important for everyone to be able to get a hold of them. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. How are your books printed?
We offset print everything. So our like release strategy is we're issuing trade paperback originals, and then we do a very souped up, nearly special edition style exclusive hardcover that's available only on Bindery. And the reason we do that is a couple of things. First of all, we are marketing to a really young audience overall, I would say. And so to only make a hardcover available as the initial edition feels like a miss to me. So definitely want the paperback in the world.
Absolutely.
However, we also have these like super fan kind of environments, and everybody does want the sprayed edges and all of that. And so because we have the ability to drive the amount of traffic that we do because of partnerships with the influencers, like most publishers don't get massive amounts of traffic to their direct buy pages on their site. But we're in a different position with regard to that. And so that's actually why we structured our royalties on net, because that is a distinct margin advantage in the direct channel that we want authors to be able to participate in too.
Readers are going to love it too, because if you're a super fan, you want that beautiful book.
Really do.
And you don't just want a regular hardcover. You want the beautiful special edition.
And you're going to show everyone and share it. Look what I got!
Here's my baby. I'm so in.
We're so like that.
I love this. I think I'm going to be one of your readers.
Okay, I want to be one
Sounds
of your
pretty
creators. So, Matt, Megan,
Yeah, me too. But
what do we do as creators
Oh,
if we want to get our work out there to you all and your influencers? What steps do we take
mhm.
As an author.
as an author? Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have an agent, you
Mhm.
can reach out, and we have some materials that can help guide the agent to figure out which
Sure.
tastemaker would be the right place to submit. We right now accept rolling submissions from agents. And then we also have a pitch fest where
That's
it's
it.
that open window I talked about, where anyone who does not have an agent can submit directly. And there's going to be a page on the site with links to individual tastemakers' submission forms.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
End of March probably is a Q1 pitch fest.
sounds right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it's worth noting that we've had multiple acquisitions come through our pitch fest, which is really wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
That's
So
great.
cool.
That is really good to hear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
I know.
As an agent, sometimes I do that. I look at these and I think, I would love to offer on this and have this on my shelf, but I cannot think of a single publisher that would take this on because it's so niche. And it just gives me a lot of hope that these niche books that need to be out in the world have a chance.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you
My
so much
pleasure.
for having
This is so lovely.
Yeah.
And good
thanks.
luck to you. We look forward to watching your all's success and becoming readers.
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing.
Your books are gorgeous.
Thank you.
And buying the Gilt Edge steampunk. I will
That's
be
right.
looking for
You know where,
Local
you know
heaven.
where Stephanie will be.
Okay, I will be there.
No, seriously though, thank you guys for
Yeah,
having
thank
the
you.
courage to take a chance and start that,
Oh,
because it's scary out there. It really is, but no regrets, and we're grateful that you both took the leap. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.